Good evening, everyone. I'm Hady Raphael, and today on the show, the last week of training in Montreal for the Bleu Blanc Noir with a game against the PLSQ Stars. Sean Reyes stops by on the show. The draw for the Voyageurs Cup took place on January 31st with Montreal facing another Ontarian foe. And finally, Beth Priestman announced her squad for the pre-camp for the SheBelievesCup. That and a lot more on episode 118 of The Ball is Round. Hello, everybody. We're back. We're back. All three of us. It's been a while. That we're not the three of us
Couple weeks
on the show. Yeah, exactly. So, Eve, tell me. I'm sure you must be happy with the Wolves' big win against Liverpool, the 3-0 win.
So actually, it's a little bit awkward because I have a brand new boss at work, and my new boss is a diehard Liverpool fan. And he's coming to Montreal for the first time tomorrow.
I'm sorry. Does he know?
like,
Does he know you're a Wolves fan?
He does.
Are you gonna poke him?
He's my boss, and I don't know him well enough yet.
That means yes. Exactly. But that's what I would have done. It's funny because my boss is a PSG fan. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that should be fun.
Exactly. Elias, same thing for you with Barcelona winning and Real Madrid losing in America. I suppose you're happy.
Yeah, I mean, 8 points clear. I'm not gonna say no to that. I mean, it's still weird watching them, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to sit down and watch Barcelona games. I'm looking at it optimistically, and I don't know how I feel about that. I was talking to my friend about it. I'm like, oh my god, Barcelona's playing! Yay! It's like this is a new feeling for me. So,
a rebirth.
Life's pretty good
for Barcelona. Yeah,
it looks like it. So hopefully they can stick that. They can keep that up.
Yeah, you guys are lucky because we were playing just like an hour ago and we lost 3-1 at home. So Marseille was with a win could have been 5 points from PSG. So but still in second place. So you know what? Still in second place.
They're looking vulnerable in Ligue 1 though. PSG doesn't look too great in Ligue 1.
Yeah,
not their usual all-conquering self. Right, they're dropping points pretty consistently. So
yeah. And Wednesday, Marseille-Paris in French Cup. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So let's talk about CF Montreal. There's a lot of things to say. First of all, last week in training, as I said, for Montreal, in Montreal at the Big O, I know that, Elias, you've been there practically almost every day. So tell us a bit, how's the team shaping up?
Well, shape is the operative word there. They're in much better shape than when they started camp, right? There's still some outliers and still some people that are working some rust off, but in general, the tempo is very good, and a lot of people are, they're moving. And if they are going to play this Hernan Losada style Argentinian inspired press where you try and win the ball back immediately, you have to be in very good shape. And Kamal Miller said it best, they're going to be pressing that much higher because they're in that much better shape. So it doesn't just look like they're in better shape. The team feels like they're better too, and that they could play this style for 90 minutes. And it's in that respect, there were some concerns, right? With Hamed Kyoto not always being in the best of shape. There's some questions about Sunusi Rahim and some other players, but by the looks of it, especially, we were both at the scrimmage against the PLSQ All Stars. Everybody was running, and there was nobody, visibly out of breath, for the majority of their time on the field. So all signs point to a team that is gradually, shaking the rust off. They're done 4 weeks now, so they're going to start more tactical work in Florida. They're going to start, getting used to grass and stuff like that. So it's going to be a very different camp from what I heard. But, as far as what they wanted to accomplish in Montreal, they did it. They got back in shape. People are starting to build a rapport with one another. And we saw in the scrimmages, right, these combinations between, a center back and a wing back, or, midfield pivot, stuff like that. They're starting to rebuild that familiarity, and the new players are integrating pretty well, I'd say. So all in all, I think it's a successful 4-week camp in Montreal.
Yeah, for sure. And you see that the team is starting to merge into one in a way, right? And
Yeah.
people, players trying to guess the way the others play, and try to build that momentum and everything. And that's what's important in training camp. And of course, right now the first part and the phase one of the training is always the physical part, right? To put your body in on the line and make sure that it's going to be able to withstand all the pressure during the season. And I think that's the first phase. But let's jump to one of our listeners' questions. And Eve, I'm going to ask you that question. So it's in French, and he's Simpap is asking if you have to compare Montreal with another team internationally, do you see a team that resembles to the way Montreal is working right now?
So, I mean, MLS is so different from basically every other league in the world in the ways that, the teams are put together and stuff like that. And as well, just sort of the initiatives, say, that teams have to finish high in the standings, because there's not a threat of relegation and there aren't consequences associated with relegation. So in that regard, like, the functioning of a team is obviously very different in MLS compared to otherwise. But thinking kind of about the philosophy, we see the philosophy of either develop young players from the academy or bring in talent, develop that talent, and maybe it was talent that was already making a name for themselves on other teams not too far away, or maybe it's folks from leagues that we had never heard of, and then hopefully allow those players to springboard onto bigger and better things, and allowing the club to bring in revenue. That philosophy, I think, is something really unsurprising that I'm going to use a Belgian comparison, given the sporting director who we have here. Of course, also a Belgian. And so I was kind of like, I was checking around the different margins, of Belgian clubs who had incoming and outgoing players, and, how much they had been spending. And I looked at since, say, 2012 to present, just since that's how long Montreal was in MLS. And I wound up settling on Genk, KRC Genk. There were several other clubs that I was kind of looking at as well. But at the end of the day, a lot of those had a really strong emphasis on homegrown talent, whereas KRC Genk did certainly have some homegrown players who they developed and who moved on to all over the top 5 leagues in the world. And so that's who I went with.
Interesting. Sim Pap, I think it's Simon, but we're going to call you Sim Pap because we're not really sure if that's your name. But it's funny that you asked that question, because I was thinking exactly this about the similarities between my team, Olympique de Marseille, and Montreal. And for me, it's the exact same style of play. If you guys watch a bit of Ligue 1, Marseille under Igor Tudor, the Croatian, the ex-Croatian central defender that's now a coach, that's exactly what they do. High press, recover the ball, and try to put as many shots on target, create as many dangerous situations in front of goal. But not only that, the whole idea of being extra fit is very important. So the whole, we know Hernan Lozada with the whole, weighing the players every week and everything. And that's something that's exactly being done by Igor Tudor. A lot of players that have been around the club for a lot of time have been offloaded, sold, and new players came in that are, physically fit and are able to withstand this kind of physical prowesses every game, right? So that team, for me, I see so many similarities between Olympique de Marseille and CF Montreal. It's hard to be 100% certain because it's still preseason, so we don't know how it's going to be. It's going to show on the pitch when the MLS starts. But looking at the preseason and how it is right now, so many similarities between those teams, and I'm kind of excited because I've been having fun watching Marseille this year. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have fun watching Montreal if they play the same style of play than Marseille. Elias, did you think of any other team?
That was, yeah. I mean, you shared us that question before the show, and it was a really good one. I did some research, and someone who watches a lot of Spanish football, I kind of landed on Real Sociedad, because
Oh, nice.
with the ball they end up playing with three at the back, similar to Montreal, but normally they line up with four defenders. So I mean, that's the biggest difference. But in terms of philosophy with the ball, they control the pace. It's very, very gradual build up, and then ultimately the final ball is to be played in from the flanks. So when you watch Sociedad, you get that feeling, or they're trying to do similar things. They have, a metronome in Ieramendi that plays as that central midfielder, kind of like Victor Wanyama. They have Sorloth, who's, just a towering target man, kind of like, Kai Kamara or Mason Toy, even Roman Kyoto, depending on how he's deployed. So when you watch Sociedad, you do get a lot of similarities when they have the ball. Without the ball, they're very different. It was kind of surprising, but with the ball, there's so many similarities that's kind of what jumped out at me. And again, they're playing Valladolid today, and we're going to talk about that later because I get to rub the fact
Yeah.
that Kyle Laren's doing well in your face. But
Mm-hmm.
Sociedad as an offensive philosophy is very similar to what they're trying to do in Montreal. So it was very nice to see that. It's very, very successful because they're third in La Liga right now. Despite losing, they're third in La Liga, and
Mm-hmm.
they're doing very well. So
Yeah, they are doing very well. So hopefully we'll see, these kinds of results from CF Montreal. We have Alain Pouliot, one of our longtime listeners, that says maybe there should be a CF Montreal fantasy camp for 40-plus-year-old fans to get back into shape. Where do I sign up? Same for me, man. Same for me. But
well,
yeah,
before every training session, they have 40 minutes of workout where they work with weights and stuff like that. So all the media was sitting there like, hey, while we're sitting here waiting for training to start, why don't we get a workout in too? Why don't we join you guys? But yeah, that'd be a fun initiative that Hernan Losada, the fitness nut, can get CF Montreal fans in shape too.
Elias, we had a chance to talk, during the week, and there was a comment that you saw on Twitter from MLS analyst Matthew Doyle talking about Rida Zouhir,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
really wanted to talk about that. We talked about Rida
Yes.
Zouhir as being, one of the top prospects from the academy in for CF Montreal, and this is what Matthew Doyle said on Rida Zouhir. He thinks that he's going to be the player that's going to break out this year. He said that he was neck and neck with Ismail Kone for the role Kone eventually won. And he said that he might not be ready to start right from the kick, but he thinks that he's going to get minutes right away. And he's going to bring a lot of the same stuff on the table that Kone did as the number 8: cleverness on the ball, creativity in his movement of the ball, and field coverage. What do you think about Matthew's words?
I agreed with a lot of it, and last year at the beginning of the season, I actually preferred Zuhir over Kone just because
Yeah,
I found that
same.
he was smarter with the ball. And then, Kone did improve drastically over the season. Like you saw it, he got so much more intelligent and composed. And then obviously he was the hands down choice. But Rida Zuhir does bring this calmness, but also this poise because he knows when to accelerate. And you saw it again. We saw it during the scrimmages, right? He's improved on that where he gets the ball and he knows when to play sideways or when to play backwards and when to really just try and beat him and accelerate the play through the midfield. So it's nice to see that he's going to be getting more looks this year. But the big point that I want to bring up is the fact that for better or for worse, Ismail Kone has set this bar for academy-based midfielders that is
Yeah,
almost unfair because he found so much success so quickly or so early on in this project
yeah,
that this is now the metric by which every single academy player, especially midfielders, is going to be,
Mm.
compared. So all of
yeah.
a sudden,
Interesting.
if Rida Zouhir doesn't get looked at by European clubs halfway through the season like Kone did, right? He didn't move, but there was almost a move to Sheffield in the summer, right? After
Mm-hmm.
6 months
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
playing professionally with the senior
No.
team. So all of a sudden,
I think that
it could be a slippery slope and just a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations on people when you have to remember that they're
I
teenagers.
agree, Elias. I agree, Elias. Eve, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think certainly, from an outside perspective, obviously, of course, these players are putting so much pressure on themselves and whatnot. So I won't speak to that, but I think for us, observers, we are all quite aware that the Kone experience is not going to be the norm for 90%, 99% of academy graduates,
Of course.
So I certainly would hope that the public, wouldn't be getting disappointed if, it's not a carbon copy of what we saw last season with the explosion of Ismael Kone. But I know, for the individual players who have to follow in and slot in where the space that he's left, certainly, hopefully they're being well surrounded and kind of reminded not to worry and to take it one match at a time or one session at a time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if you want to set the bar somewhere, just set it at Mathieu Chouinier's, level, right? He's a good rotational, player in the rotation. He can play different positions. He's a very important player in the squad. Not being a first time regular, but still a first team regular, but still, a player that's going to be here when it counts. He's going to be a role model for all these academy players. So I think that's what you should aim for as a young player. Then aim for what Ismael Kone was able to do. And second of all, I don't agree with some of the things that Matthew Doyle said. I don't think it's the same profile. Rida Zouhir is a more. He's not going to be able to dribble and to power through defenses. He's mostly going to stay a bit behind. If you want to compare him to a Canadian national team player, I would see him as a Eustáquio in a way, and not as a Kone who's going to be able to pass through the midfield and dribble some players and create those breaches in the defense. So it's going to be for me, it's a different kind of player. But I'm pretty sure that Rida Zouhir is going to be amazing this year. Just give him time, though. Maybe in the middle of the year, that's when we're going to see, the Rida Zouhir at the top of his game for his first year as a pro, first full year as a pro, of course.
Right on. Yeah.
Now, Eve, there was a question here that I wanted to give you, and that's the question from Simple Guy. It's a bit of a good segue from the first question. How many players do you think need to have significant progress in their development for this team to make the playoffs? I believe if Toy, Miljevic, Lassie do not turn it up a notch, we are in trouble. Also, believe we need a Kone type surprise from one of the academy players. So what do you think about what Simple Guys is saying?
I completely agree that whoever is going to be playing the role of serving up whomever is playing the role again of striker for Montreal, let's be it Toy, be it Kyoto, be it whomever. I think that person is absolutely going to have a big growth from their game last season. We're kind of assuming that fairly creative midfield role will likely be occupied by Matko Miljevic in the starting role anyway. And yeah, I agree. We need a lot more consistency than we got from him in order to be effective. We did get a lot of improvement with play on the wings last season compared to the 2021 season. So it wasn't as crucial, the role that Georgi Mihailovic had played. But nonetheless, it is still a really, really important role in the midfield. Especially if, a team decides to line up similarly to Montreal, that stifles them so that they can't play out wide as much. So yeah, no, completely agree.
Elias, what do you think about the Simple guys?
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by Matko Miljevic this year. I think that, you saw it, right? He's grown a lot in just the off season, right? Because even at the end of the year, he was kind of streaky, and sometimes he'd have a really good game or even a really good couple sequences and then he would kind of drop off and then he would,
Mm-hmm.
but he looks very good. His delivery has improved so much. He's always been a solid dribbler. He's always been, smart with the ball. But a lot of the time when he doesn't have the ball, he fades into the background and he kind of doesn't present himself as a threat the way that's how Georgie thrived. That's where Georgie was, at his best. So I think everyone's going to be very surprised with just how far Matko Milivojevic has come. And if just we've seen basically an hour and a half of him at most between two preseason friendlies against, a PLSQ and an under 23 team. So there's not a lot to go on. But just in the way that he's linking up with players, especially Roman Kyoto, who's most likely, if everyone stays healthy, is going to be your primary scoring option, who's going to be your talisman. It's going to be a wildly different Matko Milivojevic, and he's one of the players after this camp. I mean, going into camp, he's not someone that I really wanted to see play. Like, I mean, I was obviously intrigued in how he had progressed, but he wasn't on my radar as like, I have to see how he's improved. But after this 4-week camp, I cannot wait to see him play at an MLS level. I hope we get the chance to see some of the preseason games. If not, I cannot wait for February 25th because he is going to turn a lot of heads. But like, and as you said earlier, though, having a kind of player with a blow up year, if you will, that's the whole point of a club like what Montreal's trying to be, where they're trying to improve talent. The expectation is that everybody is an improvement on last year. All these young players. Jojo Akuzera is going to give Laplanen a legitimate run for his money. I think the right flank is Aaron Herrera's to lose. He's done very well. But in terms of Jojo Akuzera's growth and what he can offer compared to Lassie, I think there's an actual competition this time, and Lassie's not just a shoe-in for that left flank spot. So there's a lot of very interesting mini battles, if you will, that's going to be happening up and down Montreal's depth chart. But the expectation is that they're all going to be better than last season. That's there's a lot of young players coming up through the system, and that's the requirement if you're going to be a reliable and trusted developmental club.
Of course, and that's what you aim for, right? That's what you aim for. You want the players to learn and to grow from one year to another, and that's completely normal. There's only one thing about Matko Milivojevic, and I just hope, and we talked about it a couple of times and a lot of times, I think, last year. He has great vision, right? We all know that. He's very good. He's able to give some great passes and everything. It's just that his execution is not fast enough for MLS level. And now, yes, of course, we're looking at him in training, and yes, he's doing very well in training, but the intensity in training is not the same than in a game. And I just hope that he learned from that, and he's going to be able to play quicker in starting this season in 2023, because that's what he needs to be, that first team regular, that player that is the number 10 that the team needs, and to be able to fill in the shoes of Georgi Mihailovic. That's what he needs. But if he's able to learn that and to apply it during games, nobody would be able to stop him, because his vision is out of this world. He's really, really good at looking on the pitch, at looking at the movement of the players in front of him, and that's something that you either have or you don't. It's not something that you can learn very easily. So let's hope and let's hope that we see Milivojevic learn that very, very quick. Next question is from Amin, and I'm going to ask it to you, Elias, because I think that Eve already answered that. Do you think that Kamal Miller and possibly Joel Waterman will be starting the season in Montreal, especially with the interest in Miller from MLS and knowing that Waterman will be free to sign elsewhere this summer? And any news on Gabriele Corbo that is not training with Bologna? So a lot of questions, but very interesting topics.
So for starters, the European window is closed, and in Turkey it closed in 3 days, right? There was interest from Turkey about Joel Waterman moving possibly to Fenerbahce, if I remember correctly, in the summer. After the World Cup. and that kind of died down pretty quickly. As far as like mentions of Miller, there haven't been any really strong links to clubs. There haven't been really teams that have expressed that much interest. I think that may just be because we're at the end of the window. It's a World Cup year, so people are kind of wary of buying into World Cup hype and then it falling flat. So I see it as both of them will be playing this season. As for the trade thing, even I spoke about it last podcast, and I'm gonna speak about it now, and I'm going to continue repeating this. If Montreal trade Kamal Miller within the MLS, it has to be either no, it has to be for an elite attacker, as in like an all-star caliber attacker, and a decent chunk of his transfer fee not if, when he moves to Europe. Because it's not a question of if, but when he'll be making that move overseas. He's more than good
I
enough,
agree.
and he's more than capable enough, given his skill set and where the modern position of the center back is headed. He fits the profile absolutely. Right? He could even play left back if needed. He can play central center back. He could play left center back. He could play whatever is needed of him. He's definitely going to Europe, if not this year, next year. So if Montreal don't get a great player, as well as a chunk of his transfer fee, it is a massive, massive loss. And all the good, all the props they got for this absolute bargain that Aaron Herrera is going to end up looking like will be lost, because they're going to be giving up essentially millions when Kamal Miller gets bought by a European club. As for Joe Waterman, I think it's a similar trajectory. I don't know if it's going to be as cut and dry. I think he still has some consistency and some development to do, right? And obviously him getting capped will be that much more encouraging towards teams looking at him for move overseas. I still think he has some ways to go. But as for Kamal Miller,
he's capped already, right?
Yeah,
but as in more caps in competitive settings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in friendlies, yes, he's played before, but when I mean capped, I mean in competitive matches, be it the Gold Cup, if there's gonna be squad rotation, right? Even Copa America, you never know. But Kamal Miller gets traded within MLS, you better get more than what he's worth right now.
Of course,
because like I said last week, his value is only going to increase. It's at the lowest it's going to be, right?
I completely agree with you. I'm just going to give a more decisive answer. In a way, they're not moving. They're staying here. I doubt it very much that we'll see Waterman or Miller leaving. First of all, Miller, as you said, they don't want to sell him now, and he didn't have many offers now, but he'll have offer maybe in the winter next year, or maybe in the summer this year, but I doubt it very much. And for Waterman right now, he didn't sign a new contract. It's very easy. It's because he's looking to see if there's a possibility in Europe to sign on a free transfer in the summer. But as soon as the longer we wait, I'm pretty sure we're going to see a contract extension very soon from CF Montreal that's being offered from CF Montreal, and Waterman signing it. I have no doubt. I think that right now the backbone of that team is the three center backs with Miller, Camacho, Waterman, and they're here to stay for a couple more years, in my opinion, unless there's a very big or a very interesting offer. That's my opinion. Now, of course, you do have some replacements with Campbell, with Torkelson. They'll see some minutes this year. Maybe next year they'll be starters, but this year they'll see a lot more minutes in order to get acquainted with the way Hernan Losada wants to play. Now, looking at Gabriele Corbo, honestly, we know that he's surplus requirements in Bologna. That's always been the case. I don't think there are, any serious links with CF Montreal. I wouldn't say no, right? If he comes back and plays, in the rotation, I think he's a good player. He showed some good stuff, as we said in our end of year review when we did that with Sam and Eve back then. So yeah, why not? We'll wait and see if we can get him as cheap as possible, for sure. Yeah, so then moving on to the last question, I think, on CF Montreal, and it's for you, Eve. It's from Sean Richardson. Which one, if any, of the preseason games will you be keeping a close eye on?
Oh, close eye, I guess. I've just gone into it assuming that they're going to be closed door. Maybe if we are lucky, we're going to get those Twitter thingies
Hey, Sam.
updates.
Sorry,
That's
I had to
okay.
say hey, Sam.
That's okay. So for the friendlies, like keeping a close eye is kind of hard to describe as keeping a close eye, given they're not streamed and so on and so forth anymore. But obviously, I think the one that I would look at the most closely is the one versus Inter Miami, because that is a team that Montreal is going to have in their conference facing twice. Of course, always a big fan of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, although less of a fan since they destroyed their hill. And that is, no pun intended, a hill I will die on. Do please bring that back. But I think the most important preseason friendly is going to be against Inter Miami, just because once it gets competitive, if you play Houston, it's one of those games where it's almost like do it. It's across the conference. Nobody cares. Kind of not as important, not as competitive. One might not knock the other out of the playoffs, whereas it's a very real possibility between Miami and Montreal.
Elias, any other games, or like Alain, you want to see the game against the Rowdies? Any other that you're looking forward?
I mean, Eve said it best. You said it best. I want to be able to see the preseason games, right? I mean, I understand that even if even broadcasting it live, I understand that if there's complications and you have sponsors and XYZ, yes, it may be difficult. But even if you record the games and put them online later, right? I just want to be able to watch the game, right? All these people have there's so much anticipation, and it's so difficult to gauge a team just by the 4 weeks in camp. And I did my best, but like there's only so much information you can extrapolate from 2 scrimmages against an academy team and an all-star team that frankly hasn't played together that much, right? And is in right. So I'd love to see them play against organized opposition that has played together and is at a similar level. I'd love to be able to watch the 2 games against MLS teams, because even if it is against Houston, which is cross conference, I don't think they're playing against each other this year.
No,
it's just the caliber. It's the caliber that they're playing against.
Yeah.
Right? It's their first. I think it's Houston then Miami, so that'll be their biggest test so far, right? And if we can't watch that, then I understand there's reasons, and it's to be expected, but it's also just disappointing because there's so much hype around this team right now. And how do you not capitalize on this wave of popularity that the city has, right? With the Alouettes not being great and the Canadiens definitely not being great. You're the only professional sports team, right? Even the Alliance are not so hot. So you're the only men's sports team in the city that currently is playing and succeeding. How are you not making every single game super accessible for your fans?
I completely agree, but that's something that we've been saying for God knows how long, but hopefully it will change one day and someone will hear us. We do have a question here during the show from Michael T in French, asking us, do you think we'll have any new players coming and joining the team? Guys, are you still hoping for any additions, Eve? Or like more than hoping?
I think if Kai Kamara ends up going, because we still don't know, obviously, then I do think one would absolutely need more depth. If it turns out that he winds up staying, I think Montreal likely won't be signing anybody immediately, unless it's one of those things where the stars align.
Elias?
Yeah, I mean, there's Chinonso Ofo, who's going to be joining the team in Florida.
Yeah.
That was the only arrival that I expected. I mean, if they do bring someone in, Olivier Renal said it's a possibility. I don't think they'll bring in someone that could walk into the first to the starting lineup right away. I think that ship has passed. But if they bring in another Elias Iliadis type profile player at a different position to kind of bring in some more youth that they think is promising, I wouldn't put it past them. But even Kai Kamara stays, Kai Kamara goes. I don't think there's that much wiggle room or time left that they have. Maybe they could. Maybe they're gonna look into bringing someone in the summer. That's possible, but maybe that's when they're starting to look now, and they're starting to do their research. But as for a notable signing that they're going to bring in for the start of the year, I don't see. I don't see them bringing in, like Olivier Giroud, for example. I know we always default to Olivier Giroud, but it is what it is.
No.
You
But
gotta pick. You gotta pick a different name.
yeah.
But he would
You know
fit
what?
so well.
I don't.
I would. I'm pretty sure we're going to see another player coming. Maybe not now, but in the summer. I don't. I'm pretty sure we're going to see someone just because of the way the contracts have been handled and the contracts negotiations have been handled. Why would you ask Victor Wanyama to cut his salary in half? Why would why would you, not replace Bjorn Johnson? All those, the salary cap, we're very far from the salary cap, right? And there's some space somewhere for someone to come and add that extra layer of quality in that team. So I would be very surprised if the team stays the same at the end of the season. Now, it's a possibility that we're not going to see anyone now, but I would be very surprised if we don't see a player in the summer, join the team in the summer. Maybe they want to wait to see how it's going to go during the first part of the season before, in order to evaluate what kind of reinforcement they can bring. Do they need to bring another player that's going to be ready next year, or do they need to bring the big guns for us to be even better this year than we would already be? Maybe they're waiting to see to evaluate the team a bit more. Maybe they're waiting for some preseason games in order to see what's missing. But I doubt that we're going to see exactly the same team. I would really be surprised. So that's it, I think, for all the questions that were asked during the show and before the show on CF Montreal. Let's close it out. Just close out just this part of the pod with the friendly that was played between CF Montreal and, of course, the PLSQ Stars. Eve, 4 periods of 25 minutes each. Reaction.
I mean, it was, I think it's an organized way because, both sets of teams obviously would want to make pretty much wholesale changes often, right? As kind of often as they could to shake things up and to try different players and, pull them in and out of different systems. So, I mean, yeah, no, totally fine. No, I see no issue with that. Go for it. It's a friendly. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, but I think it was nice because you had, Hernan Losada had about 30 players that he could play, so 25 players that he could play. So, at one point you want to give them enough time in order to evaluate them in a way. And I think it just was a bit weird the way it was done. But you know what? If it works, why not? Why not? Elias, looking at that, I'm not gonna. Yeah, is it a friendly game? Is it a scrimmage? I don't know how we can call it, but looking at that opposition between a team that's not well prepared, of course, because PLSQ, they just started their training camp. It's players from different teams, so they don't know each other very well. Like, of course, they know each other, but they don't know how to play with each other very well and stuff like that. What do you make of that game?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take things with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah, of course.
You see players play well. It's expected. It was nice to see the improvement from the U23 scrimmage. you could CMLP had said it right. They're shaking off the rust and they're feeling just generally
Yeah.
in a game scenario. They're feeling much
Mhm.
better, which is it's to be expected. You against U23s, it was their first time playing a proper game since they lost in the playoffs, right? Or unless you
Yeah.
played in the World Cup or during the international break. So it was the first time playing together as a unit since NYCFC. So obviously you make certain observations and you understand that yes, players are rusty, yes, players get back to form at different rates. It was nice to see that a lot of the players made really noticeable jumps in just like a week between the two games. A lot of players were noticeably more comfortable on the ball. It took them 15 minutes to establish a rhythm against a bunch of academy players, but against semi-professional players that were this is again for a lot of these guys the biggest game of their life. They came out pressing just as hard, but they managed to dominate the game from the get-go, right? And took them until the last 15 minutes of the fourth quarter for them to really start losing focus, and they kind of goofed around. They conceded a goal, and they weren't at that same level. But for three and a half of the quarters, they were excellent. Then Laurent Simon even said it, right? He gave them all he did not mince words about
Mhm.
that fourth quarter. He was very unhappy, and apparently Hernan
Yeah.
Losada made his feelings known, which is also a nice thing because yes, everyone's talking about how Hernan Losada has a very personal approach and he likes to speak to each player individually and get to know them, but when it comes time to lay down the law and let someone know that they're not playing at the
Yeah.
required level, at least he's not afraid from the start to tell you that, hey,
Mhm.
this is never going to happen again, right?
Yeah.
Aside from that, it was nice to see Usman Jabang had one little gaff at the beginning. He got dribbled, then he had to pull someone down, draw a foul, but after that he was pretty solid.
Mm.
um Elias Iliadis played center back, so I guess they're going to be trying him as similar to Mathieu Chouanier, as maybe he may not be playing his natural position, but his versatility will cause him to play a number of positions. But he did that very well. He's going to be if he does end up playing center back, it's a nice, again, progressive ball moving decision, and he can help build play defensively. He's capable, and with the ball, obviously, playing in the midfield, he's more than capable of playing center back, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Now,
interesting, and you see a lot of combinations, but it's tough
yeah,
to get a general
it is
idea.
interesting. Yeah, you can't. It's too early within the even within the year yet in order to give some different answers and everything.
Yeah,
But Eve,
exactly.
let's talk
Mhm.
about those two players because this not only Iliadis that played as center back, but also I think Mil Garvanyan when he came in for the
Yep.
last I think 10-15 minutes that played as a center back. When you see midfielders coming and just playing completely out of position as center backs, do you think that those players are at the back of the row in a way they're the players that we're unlikely to see grabbing minutes with the team, or you don't read too much?
Um, I wouldn't read too much into it in this one friendly versus, a team that was put together, like as you said, and are not familiar with each other. I wouldn't read too much into it as well. It could also be the coach looking to see if there is additional maybe ways to involve the player in the squad. Could they potentially have some of that versatility that has proven to be really helpful for some many players who we've already mentioned on the show tonight. So I wouldn't read too much into it right yet. Certainly, I think if it's a trend that continues throughout the remaining friendlies, then
Yeah.
yeah. But for one sample size is too small.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. Let's talk about the surprises that we've seen during that game. I had the opportunity to watch the game, to be there. Elias, you were there too, so that's nice. So we're able to see, those players, play during those 25, 30, 35 minutes. And that's, I think, very interesting. Some surprises. First surprise, of course, Nathan Saliba playing a more offensive role. He was very comfortable, I thought. For someone that played this role for the first time in his career, in a way, I think he was very comfortable scoring a goal. Offensively, technically, he was in my opinion very it seemed very easy for him. So what do you think about Nathan Saliba? Are we going to see him get some minutes during the season? Is he going to be that breakout player? Or is it going to be Zuhair? Do you think it's between the two of them, or what do you
Well,
think about that?
yeah, I mean, we spoke about how densely packed that midfield is now,
Yeah,
and how many
yeah,
there's
we did.
so many players fighting for basically like 2 or 3
Yeah,
spots, right? So I think that again with the extra competition added, that's the Leagues Cup. I think that in
yeah,
the long run, that'll pay dividend. I think it's all about a lot of these players, Iliadis, Zuir, Saliba, being patient and biding their time to keep their head down, work hard, and show that when those that fixture congestion hits, and you're going like a month where you're playing 2 or 3 games a week, that they get called on and they'll be ready. But I think for the most part, it's going to be yes, they want to develop young talent, but at the end of the day, Victor Wanyama needs his minutes, Samuel Piet needs his minutes, Spencer Sornell has
of
earned
course,
his minutes, right?
of course.
So be it
So,
wing back, be it in the middle of the field, be it as a 10, as an 8, as a second pivot, right? Matthias Ronaldo has earned his minutes. And I think that at least for the beginning, especially with a new coach, and you kind of want to lend some credibility to the system, you go with the more proven entities.
of
So,
course, of course.
the 3 young midfielders I named before will have their chances. It just depends on can they be patient, work hard, show they're worth it in training, and then deliver when they're called upon, right? Be
Of
it 10
course.
minutes off the bench or starting in CPL or
Yeah, it's gonna be
or starting
slow.
against
They're gonna. He's
the
gonna.
Spain
Yeah,
Championship, right? So not CPL. But
yeah.
it all depends on
Hmm.
that. I don't think that Saliba and Zuir will have Kone type moments where right out of the gate they're starting and they're stunning everybody. But I think that they can definitely surprise some people and bring their own skill set off the bench and maybe carve out their usage in specific scenarios, right? Where Nano
Of
Sada
course.
remembers that 2 weeks ago we had the same situation and Zuir was excellent, so he's going back in. So that's where they have to kind of establish themselves and set themselves apart.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's gonna be fun. One other player, Eve, and I want to hear you about this. Sunusi Ibrahim scored 2 goals, one amazing bicycle kick.
Hmm.
Is it Sunusi Ibrahim's year this year? It's early to
Mm,
say, but what do you feel? Do you have a gut feeling telling you something?
yeah, and it's not good. Um,
Never is. Never is.
no, 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 no. I feel bad, but I don't feel like what we've seen from him, we didn't see very much at all last year. So I'm largely basing this on 2021, which again is not fair because he was 2 years younger last year or in 2021. Um, but I don't feel like he fits this certainly I didn't feel like he felt like he fit the system that Wilfred Nancy had set up. If there's going to be a lot of overlap with Hernan Lozada's system, I'm still going to have a lot of questions as to whether or not his profile truly fits. And so I don't know how much growing maybe he's done as a player. So maybe he has, developed a little bit more so that he is able to handle the physicality of MLS better, so that he is, um, you know, improved his timing and just some of the really basic things that were lacking, to maybe make his profile a little bit more cohesive with what I imagine, based on what you all have described, we'll be seeing from Montreal attack.
It's gonna be interesting to see the rest of the preseason
Mm-hmm.
for Sunusi Ibrahim, because I think he has a lot to gain, but also a lot to lose, I think, this year, Sunusi
Mm-hmm.
Ibrahim. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about, and I think it's going to be a good segue. The one that really impressed me the most during that game against the PLSQ Stars is Sean Rea. I think his first touch is wow. He did some technical stuff that were, I think, above average, above what I was expecting from him at this level. Hopefully, he's gonna be able to show it during MLS season. But I was very, very, very I'm very enthusiastic about what he's able to bring to that team. And you know what? Let's hear a bit about Sean Rea. We had him for an interview. Elias, had the interview with Sean Rea. So let's listen to it all together in the next few seconds.
So I'm joined here with Sean Rea, attacking midfielder, born and raised in Montreal, played 2 years in Valor FC and the Canadian under-21 Canadian Premier League Player of the Year. So, Sean, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
Good, Joe.
Not too bad, not too bad. Thanks for coming onto the podcast. Now, like I said before, born and raised in Montreal, did you have this standard, Montreal soccer dual athlete type upbringing, or was it really just soccer from the get-go with you?
Well, I started off playing hockey.
Yeah.
And I always knew I liked soccer a bit more, but like I tried out both sports. And then when it became where there was like 3 trainings a week with hockey, 3 trainings a week with soccer, I had to pick. So I obviously picked soccer because that was what I knew I wanted to do with my career. And I'm glad I stuck with that choice.
Was it an easy decision, or was it really like, you had
It was an
to
easy
pick
decision.
between the two?
Like I always knew I liked soccer more. I just did hockey because it was fun and all my friends were doing it, and yeah, we're Canadians, right? So it's kind of what everybody does.
It's how you stay in shape over the winter. It's practicing for soccer, right?
Exactly. But no, I always knew soccer was my number one, and that's what I stuck with.
Is that more of coming from your family, or is that more from, just enjoying the game more from, or were you tied on the two and then you just kind of, soccer ended up winning out?
In my family, soccer was the number one sport. We're Italian, so we would watch soccer all the time. My grandparents, my uncles, big soccer fans, and I just loved playing soccer more than I did hockey. So for me, it was an easy decision.
Now, I have a lot of Italian friends that, there's a lot of rivalries within the family and teams they support. I know that you're a big Napoli fan. Is the whole family a Napoli fan, or is there some beef?
Whole family big Napoli fans? So we have no rivals in between family. It's
yeah, that's good. Sometimes it gets a little bit heated, but
I know
it's nice
I
to
got
all sit around together.
A lot of friends where
yeah.
one side is Juve, one side is Milan, and then you know how it goes.
So would you say that playing for Napoli is a dream of yours? I mean, you've already you're playing with CF Montreal, which is your boyhood club, but is Napoli on your bucket list, if you will?
Of mine. Yeah, of course, because I've been watching them since I was young. Lorenzo Insigne obviously being one of my idols, so it would be obviously a dream come true to play for them. But right now I'm focused on Montreal and doing the best I can here at home.
What would it be like to share the field with him in a Montreal Toronto derby?
That would be really cool, but on the field it's like where I'm going for the win. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, that's Lorenzo Insigne. It's a rival like anybody else. And then after the game, it would be nice to get a picture with him and swap jerseys or something. But honestly, on the field, you play your heart out and go for the win.
I mean, it's been up and down for Napoli, in recent years. Who's your favorite player that, you grew up idolizing, you grew up watching? It's like, that's my guy.
Well, it has to be Lorenzo Insigne.
Yeah. Do you find that you model your game after him too, or you try and play similar to his style?
I wouldn't say I try to model my game after him. I find there are similarities in the way we play, but it's not that I'm gonna say, oh, this is what he did, I'm gonna try to do it. It's just, I play my own game, and I started liking him because I saw similarities in our games. He's a small player, fast, likes to dribble, cut in and shoot. So that's why I kind of really like the way he plays. Now there's a new player on Napoli. His name is Kvaratskhelia, and he's
it's tough to pronounce, but
he's tough to pronounce. But he's another one that I really enjoy watching because similar profile again, small, quick, takes guys one-on-one. So just that type of player is what I really enjoy watching.
It really seems to enjoy playing the game, which is always nice to see. It's always,
Exactly.
It's easy to root for someone who clearly enjoys playing,
100%.
In terms of, back in MLS, this is going to be your first year, hopefully your first year playing with the club, right? Do you have any people that you were really looking forward to play with when you kind of said like, all right, this is the year that, I don't want to go out on loan again. I want to spend the season with the team and get my minutes. Is there anybody that you really were like, I got to play with this guy?
Well, honestly, it's been the whole team. I just really wanted to be a part of the team and get my minutes with my home club. I want to play in front of our fans, in front of the family. It's just, that's been a dream of mine since I was a kid. I was in the academy since I was, I think, 11 years old. and that's been the goal ever since then, is getting my debut with Montreal, playing at Saputo Stadium, and that's the dream. And is there one guy in particular? No, it's just the whole team, the club, and just being a part of that family and going for a championship.
I mean, you've been to club, like you said, since you were 11, right?
Mhm.
Who was your favorite impact player growing up? Have you,
Well, obviously
do you have
Piatti when
Piatti? Has to be
Piatti,
Piatti,
yeah.
right? It's everybody's a Piatti.
Yeah, it's this guy's taking on 1, 2, 3, 4 guys and scoring. It's like, how can you not love him? But yeah, I enjoyed many players, but he's the one who really stuck in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, set the standard for,
Exactly.
what it means to be an MLS player for CF Montreal for the Impact, right? So it's
100%.
it's very easy to see why so many people were really just in
Yeah.
love with him.
Yeah.
This year specifically, though, there's a lot of competition, I'd say, like in the midfield, and it seems like there's a
Mhm.
lot of candidates. How are you trying to set yourself apart, or how are you trying to maybe like establish yourself as this is what I'm going to be known for, this is what I'm going to be relied upon for?
Well, the type of player I am is an offensive player that likes to make the difference. I want to give that last pass, the assist, the goal. And I feel like if I could show what I did last season in the CPL and show it this season in training and bring it into games, I feel like that's how I'll show the team, show the coach that I could really help them out this year. Because I think I'm a difference maker. And if I could bring that into this team and really help them out that way, I feel like I could be a very helpful player.
I mean, speaking of, CPL, you spent 2 seasons out on loan
Mhm.
and at Valor FC. Last year was really your breakout year, if you will,
Yeah.
right? You had, most assists, most chances created, all this stuff, player under 21 player of the year. What can you say about your experience at Valor in terms of, just teaching you the ropes as a professional footballer?
I think it was really important for me because it was like a stepping stone. When I signed in 2020, I still felt like I needed that like that middle ground to start playing professional, get those minutes, learning how to play with men. And the first season I find was like an adaptation period. It wasn't an amazing season. It wasn't a bad season. It was a four assists, 2 goals, just getting to learn how to play with men and stuff. And I feel like last year really was, like you said, my breakout season because I was really able to show my qualities and play the way I want to play. It's really lots of shots, lots of chances created. And I feel like it's really important for a player like me, an offensive midfielder, is to create those chances and to bring the team with you and try to score as many goals, assists. And our goal was to make it into the playoffs. Unfortunately, we weren't able, but just to do as much as I can to bring the team forward.
Yeah, was the level at CPL kind of what you were expecting when you got there at the beginning? Where was it, higher? Was it lower? How did you gauge getting to Valor at the beginning?
Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised that the level was a lot higher than I anticipated. When I first heard people talking about the CPL, it was a lot of negative comments. Oh, it's a new league, nobody's really good, and so I kind of had that in the back of my mind. And then when I played my first game, I remember it was against Forge. I'm like, wow, these guys can play. They're big, they're fast, they're technical. This is a good league. So I think I was took a bit by surprise in the beginning, but then I was able to adapt and to learn how to play in this type of league. And you could see in my second year, I really adapted well, and I was able to prove myself as a young player. And I
Did
think it
anybody
was
stand?
important for me. I think it was really important for me to have those 2 years to adapt, get better, and then really show my qualities.
Did anybody stand out to you in terms of people you played with that you learned from, people you played against, where you're just like, constantly trying to learn from this experience?
Well, on my team, I had a guy named Daryl Fordyce who played in the second division in England. I learned a lot from him. Always sitting with him after training, he was talking to me a lot about his experiences, who he played against, and there was Kyle Becker that we played against Forge, and there's some guys that I really know how to play, and you could learn from them. So I had a really pleasant experience, and I would recommend it to all young professionals getting started if they have to go on loan, not to take it as a negative thing, and to really learn from that experience because I learned a lot, and I feel like now I'm ready to take that next step into the MLS.
Yeah, no. On the field, you're very, very clearly, it's a massive learning experience that very obviously benefited you. Off the field, though, what was it like playing with professionals that, aside from just like, playing with the academy, you're playing now with veterans, people that have been around playing professional soccer for a while now. How is that different off the field now in terms of, just growing into the role of a professional soccer players instead of just, playing at a very high level?
That's a good question. I feel like you could learn a lot from these guys as veterans off the field. They take you under their wing, and they they kind of help you join into the team. Like it's a good question. I feel like playing with these veterans, you learn a lot, and they can help you tremendously on and off the field. And yeah, I feel like it's you need those type of players to help you make an easy transition into the new teams.
Did anybody kind of have that mentor role for you where they kind of took you under their wing and they said, all right, this is what we do here. This is how it works. This is, the life of a
Well,
professional player.
it's funny. Just yesterday, we had a friendly game, and
Yeah.
Kai Kamara, before the game, comes to me. He said, "You know what? You keep your head up. You work hard. If you make a mistake, it's gonna happen. You're gonna make mistakes, and you go through it. And just like that positive feedback and just giving you confidence helps you a lot. And I appreciate those type of players that take you under their wing and try to help you as best they can.
Now, this is your third time doing the preseason camp with the first team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 2020, 21. Yeah, third time.
This is the third time. Has it gradually evolved? What are your takeaways at the end of this camp or at the end of this Montreal leg of this camp compared to, the other two times?
Well, the first two times I felt like I already knew I was gonna go on loan, and I never felt like I was really fighting for my spot. I'm like, I'm here to train, and I'm gonna go on loan. But this preseason, I really feel like I have my chance to really fight and get a spot on this team, and that's what I'm going for. I'm giving my 100%. I'm trying to prove to the coach that I can really help him out and help the team out and become a player that gets regular minutes, and that's what I feel that I'm going for this preseason camp.
Have you had the chance to speak with Hernan about, your role, whether it's going to be, a starter, whether it's going to be off the bench, at least at the beginning of the season? Have you had that kind of
I haven't
discussion?
had that discussion with him on what he sees me as right now, but we have spoken, and he said that he likes my profile. Obviously, he was a 10 when he was younger. Excuse me. So I also find that it's good that he was a 10. He knows what I'm going through. He can really guide me and help me out, and I feel fortunate to have a coach like him.
Yeah, I mean, aside from because again, you had these sessions with Wilfried Nancy. You've now had these 4 weeks with Hernan. Are there any major distinctions? We understand that tactically there's going to be some tweaks, but in terms of man management, in terms of the way he interacts with the players, is there any difference? Is it something that it took a while to get used to, or is it something that was pretty easy?
Well, the difference I've noticed is with Wilfred, I didn't really speak with him much. I didn't have that personal connection with him, but I already feel like with Hernan, a new coach coming in, I already spoke to him within the first couple of weeks, and I saw that like when a coach comes to you and talks to you, I feel like that means he cares about you. So the fact that I already had that talk with him shows that okay, this guy's gonna really help me out, and he'll try to make me into the best player I can be. So I really appreciated that from him, and that's like the little detail I noticed. But I haven't been around with Wilfred long enough to see what kind of coach he is. Hopefully, I'll be able to stick around long enough with Hernan and see the type of coach he is.
Yeah, I mean, there was all these there was not controversies, but it was some concerns maybe when he was announced about the way his stint in DC went. Was that of any concern to you, or was it in the locker room? Was that really something that you guys talked about before he showed up, or was it?
No, not at all. We just a new coach. That's like everybody just wants to get to work and just prove themselves. It's like we don't really talk about that stuff in the dressing room and stuff. It's more just new coach, great. Like let's get to work, and hopefully this season will be better than the last.
Yeah, speaking of, last season, Georgi Mihailovic kind of played in that number 10 role.
Yeah.
He was obviously, MVP caliber until he got injured. Now there's this pretty sizable gap in the midfield that's kind of competed between, you, Matko, Mathieu Chouanier throwing his hat in the ring. There's a couple people have been tried at that number 10 spot. How do you feel like your skill set is going to kind of set you apart?
Well, I feel like I feel like I'm a different player than Georgie. First of all, I don't think like Georgie was a phenomenal player and did so many great things, but I feel like I'm a bit different. My skill sets, I feel like in the last third, I can make the difference. Beating one player, giving that last pass, and slowing down, accelerating to beat the last man to put a cross in or to take a shot. And I feel that my qualities really come in the last third of the field. And that's what I'm hoping to show to the coach, showing to the staff that that's what I could do to help the team.
Now, we've seen, especially last season, if Hernan keeps similar possession style play, at least in terms of the patterns, you're going to have to end up dropping deep into the midfield from time to time just to kind of kickstart the play.
Of course.
And it's a bit more physical there. It's like you said, it's further away from the box and maybe a bit further away from your comfort zone. How are you prepared to deal with, that increased physicality and pace in MLS?
I feel comfortable with it because I think that if you're smart and quick, you're not going in to go in for a duel. You're coming in at the right time. You're playing a 1-2. You're not really getting into these battles physically. So for me, as a smaller player, that I know that I'm not as physical as these bigger guys. So I got to play to my advantage, and it's to come in, check out, 1-2 touch, play quick, not to hold the ball too long in the midfield because that's when you'll get a tackle or get pushed off the ball. So I'm just really focused on playing to my qualities, and coming down, I feel super comfortable coming down to play a 1-2 with the center back, the midfielders, and just to build out of the back, and then to use my offensive qualities in front of the net.
Do you think there's to be any kind of growing pains, at least at the beginning, in terms of just adjusting to MLS caliber play?
I'm sure it's going to take a bit of time to adapt, but that's like it took me time to adapt in the CPL. It's going to take time. I think there's always an adaptation period, and I think it's super hard to just come in and dominate right away. But I have no doubt that I'll be able to adapt quite quickly.
Is there any, you've played 2 friendlies now, is there anybody on the field that you really get along with well? Off the field, it seems like everybody gets along pretty well. You were talking about looking forward to Florida to kind of, solidify the group and have a lot of chances to bond. But on the field, is there anybody that you really just click with or you've gone along with really well, like off the bat?
Like, I find it hard to click with somebody right away. I feel like I really need to, because the coach is also changing the lineups a lot. And we're not really playing with the same people all the time. And I feel like you really need to play a good amount of games with the same people to really know if this guy likes the ball in depth, he wants it on his feet. So I feel like you need time to play with everybody and see what everybody likes, because it's difficult to know right away what this guy wants, and then it's, especially me doing a preseason last season, then leaving, coming back. It's always, things are changing, and I just need time to play, see how these guys want to play, and then I'll adapt my game to these guys and hopefully be able to click with all of them.
I mean, you personally, we've played, with 2 10s behind a lone striker. You've played with a lone 10 behind 2 strikers. At least this camp, is there one that you prefer? Is there one that you feel more comfortable in?
There's not one I feel more comfortable in. I find now that I'm thinking of it, because yesterday there was a friendly, I enjoyed playing with 2 10s under a striker. I feel like you're able to get the ball more because one guy's taking care of his side, one guy's taking care of his side. So when it's on that side, you're constantly getting the ball moving, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like I also created a lot more having those 2 10s. But I think, like you said, it's also about adapting and playing a lot of games in these roles to see which I like better, because I haven't played enough of 2 10s to really say I prefer it more than 1 10. So I'll be able to tell you more at the end of the season.
Do you have any, realistically, because you may not have a starting spot right away, even though you are in the running for it. Do you have any concrete objectives in terms of, aside from getting minutes? Is there really just like, I have a list of stuff I want to get done for this to be a successful season?
Well, obviously, like I said, not to count minutes, but for me, the most important thing is to get minutes. And once I get those minutes, then I could start building goals like assists, getting goals. But I can't get any of those things if I don't get minutes. So right now, my number one goal is to fight for a spot in preseason, to give my 100% and to really do my best. And once I do that, hopefully it'll come in form of minutes. And once I get those minutes, to do the best I can with those minutes. And it's maybe not even just to score an assist, but to be present in the game, getting the ball a lot, to create chances, just to really be in the game and getting a lot of balls, not just being there and not touching the ball for 5-10 minutes. So just getting to adapt to the MLS, and then obviously it's going to come with assists and goals.
Between the last 2 scrimmages, you got about an hour and a half roughly of play time now between the game against U23s and now the PLS2 All-Stars. What's your biggest takeaway from how you're going to be deployed in this team, and what do you think is going to be the one thing that'll that you'll find success with relatively soon in terms of your positioning?
I think the way I'll find the most success is really in the way you place yourself in the pockets. I think that's really important in my position. Is I feel like once I master getting into the right spaces at the right time, it'll be a game changer. I feel like that's what I have to work on right now. That's my main goal, is to get into the right space at the right time, check in, get the ball, play an important pass, and continue my run, and just to master that movement off the ball. I think once I get that down, I'll be able to, when I put getting into the right spaces and put my technical abilities together, I think it'll be really, really beneficial for me and the team.
Is that something you've talked about with Hernan, given that, you share a position? Did he give you any pointers on, how to properly navigate that space?
I haven't had the chance to speak with him quite yet, but I'm sure that'll come soon, especially with him playing the position and knowing how to navigate those spaces. I'm sure that conversation will come up.
Did you watch any highlight tapes to kind of, see what he would do? And
No, I haven't
try and
watched
mimic
his
some stuff?
highlights yet. No, I haven't watched his highlights yet. But obviously, watching soccer, you try to see what the guys at the highest level do and try to do it yourself.
Sean, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and good luck again in Florida, and good luck. Hopefully we see you around for the rest of the season. You've got obviously, a lot of talent, and a lot of exciting people are really looking forward to see you play. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys. So it was a very exciting, I think, interview. Thanks a lot, Elias, for doing the interview. It was very, very exciting, very interesting.
Yeah, it was my first one-on-one interview in a while, actually. So I don't know. I had to kind of knock some rust off myself because I hadn't done that since before the pandemic. Actually, I think I've had phone interviews, but face to face like that, it's been a while. So I think I mean, it's very nice to speak with Sean. He's even after we stopped recording, right? He's you could tell he has a lot of confidence and he rates himself very highly. It's something you need in an attacking player a lot at the time, right? So I think that it'll be really cool to see how he progresses, and he clearly has his mindset on what he needs to improve, and it's good that he notices that he doesn't think he's perfect, right? He understands that there's areas of his games he can fine tune. So it's going to be nice to see. And yeah, just another exciting player, and already a very long list of exciting young players at the club.
Of course. Some few comments that are very nice. I'm just going to read them very fast. So we have Chan, a friend of the pod, that says, with his Italian passport, Rea could be the next to move to Europe in 2024, or maybe before. You never know. And Wilfried Kokua that says, I hope Montreal has a midfielder who can break the first line of defense with his passes. Sean Rea, man, hopefully we'll be able to see that. Matt Komiljevic, Rida Zuhir, all young players that can do that. So hopefully we'll see them, get minutes and of course show their talents on the pitch. So I hope, guys, you would like the interview with Sean Rea. So leave some comments if you have any. And of course, we'll try to get as many interviews as possible with Montreal players during the whole season, of course. Let's move on to, we have a couple more topics on CF Montreal. We're just going to go through them pretty quickly. MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Eve, were you able to access it to watch some content? What do you think about the whole idea, the whole thing?
It is here. We are using it.
Not more than that.
It's cute that I appreciate that they tried to do some content like about the different iconic players, about some of the highlights from last season, about some other. I haven't watched all of it yet. I have had a really, really busy last week or so. So I haven't had the chance to watch everything. I definitely have some concerns as far as for folks who don't already have a season ticket holder and, so don't have this pass included. I have concerns in that regard as to the budgetary side of things, but I don't manage people's finances. That's not my life. But it seems relatively user-friendly. I've watched some stuff.
Elias, did you have access or not yet? I didn't touch
Oh no,
mine
I
yet.
didn't.
Okay. No, no,
I
no.
didn't. Is what do you mean by access? Is there
You like sign
like a?
into it.
But
No, there's
because I
nothing
don't have
for
Apple
media
TV,
for
so I
media
don't.
people. Okay, okay.
No, that's the thing though, because I'm wondering. Like, I don't think I don't know if I'm going to get it. I'll see if the
Okay.
Yeah.
Canadian press can maybe like can
Like front you.
bankroll it. If they do, then exactly. If I could slip that into my invoice every month, then hey, maybe.
I'm
But
pretty sure they will. If you have to write something, you have to be able to
that's an
watch the
email.
games.
Yeah, that's an email I'll have to send to my boss.
Hey,
Hopefully,
Canadian
he says
Press,
yes.
Canadian Press, please give an Apple TV
Yeah,
subscription to our guy here. Hey,
please and thank you.
come on,
But
we can do it.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's nice that you could tell that they're making an effort to at least like it feels like they're making an effort to include every team in making the content. It's not just like we'll
Yeah.
focus on the big teams, and I guess the smaller markets will get something eventually. So I know that Summer Piet spent like 3 or 4 days
Yeah.
away from like before he came from training camp. Before he came to training camp, he spent 3 or 4 days just strictly doing MLS related media content, right, with Apple TV. There was this picture that came out with Tim Cook and then all every team captain in the league. So
Again,
it's
they've
nice,
done
but
like yeah. They've done media stuff like
so
every year though. The only difference is that this year it was exclusively for Apple.
Okay. I can't wait to access it. I didn't have time to,
But
unfortunately, but I
yeah.
can't wait to see how
But
it's going.
it's interesting. I don't know how else to say it. It's interesting. I'll be really curious to see how the games are. Like at the end of the day, I'm more interested in the
Of
games than
course,
kind of the
yeah.
adjacent content.
of course.
So I'll be really curious about the production value for that. So that's kind of for me like really what I'm really holding out to judge. Is especially like you all stream other sports, right? On other because that's how it is these days. I don't know how many if you're watching them on cable or no.
Yeah,
Or,
we
Not really.
stream, we watch. There's a
okay,
lot of stuff.
okay, yeah, because I don't know about you, but like most of the others, because to watch soccer these days, you have to have like 16 different subscriptions. So it's so hit and miss, like the quality that you get on whichever platform is producing the soccer content that you're watching or the game, as far as like the reliability of the stream and audio and video being in sync and so on. So that's like a lot of what I'm going to really look for once
Of course.
they get going.
I remember that zone was pretty good when it had Champions League. So hopefully it's going to be the same quality for Apple TV. So can't wait, can't wait. Moving on to the next topic: new primary jersey. So the launching of the new jersey was delayed due to the fact that CF Montreal is in discussions with the natives in order to have something put on the jersey. There's a lot of fuss around it. Honestly, I never understood the whole fuss around jerseys. I like merch. I just don't like to buy the jersey of the same team every year. So for me, you know what? Okay, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I can wait a couple more weeks, a couple more months. So what do you think about that? Just quickly, Elias, any ideas, any whatever, any suggestions, any
I don't
comments
care.
about the whole situation?
I don't think I could physically care less, especially for the reason that they are delaying it. If it was like, we decided on a whim to do a last minute change because XYZ, because we didn't like the shade of blue or whatever, and that's just like yeah. But for the reason, right, if they're trying to get their cooperation with indigenous communities done right, then obviously take all the time you need. As for people getting pissed, it's a jersey. It's a shirt. Like I understand that kids have importance in soccer, and I value that, but it is a jersey. The logo was presented in due time. I think the logo is a significant improvement, and
Yeah.
that's like it really people are making
Yeah.
such a big deal because like for once there's no bad news in the CF Montreal news cycle. So everyone's like, oh my god, I need something to be bitter about. Like no, it's really not that deep. It's a shirt. It'll get here when it gets here. They're supposed to play their away games with their gray shirt anyway. So people are just losing their minds for no reason. And I'm treating this with the same thing as the whole Kai Kamara trade thing. When there's an update, cool. Until then, I don't want to hear about it. I do not
Yeah.
care. Like
Oh boy.
Eve, what do you think? Anything about the jersey situation?
Obviously it does suck because there are lots of people out there who do like to buy that merchant stuff, and obviously it is a really, tricky relationship, whether it's being navigated or whether it's just being kind of established. I'm not sure exactly where that relationship stands with the Indigenous communities, but at the end of the day, they did at least come out and say, here's
We're
where we are.
sorry.
We're sorry. Yeah. It's unfortunate because again, Montreal has had so many things go down that just make Montreal look a little bit behind the eight ball or disorganized or lacking in planning. Hard to say if this can fall into that category because of the length of time it typically takes for a jersey to go from the concept to the production. Hard to say if it was foreseeable or if they should have acted on something sooner. I'm not sure. But I'm kind of in Elias's vein as well. Like, this is far from the end of the world. They're going to be playing in their secondary kits. It is just, it's just a little bit of a damper, I guess. It's just kind of one thing that does pull a little bit of hype out of that preseason experience, especially given we do have the new logo to anticipate.
Yeah,
but
well, let's wait and see. I know a lot of people want to buy the jersey, but guys, it's okay if you buy it in a couple of weeks. It's not going to be the end of the world. So let's wait and see how this unfolds. Let's moving on.
You're not going to wear it to a game until March 18th anyway. So
it's still going to be too cold in March.
Exactly. If anything, you're wearing it over like a hoodie and it's like so. You still have a month and a half before you're going to even wear it to a game. So don't worry. It'll get there.
So moving on, guys. Canadian Championship, Voyageurs Cup. The draw has taken place on the 31st of January. Montreal facing Vaughan FC.
Oh my God.
Another Ontarian foe, another Ontarian team. Like, what's going on with Montreal and Ontario? Always, drawing it, each other.
It's statistically more likely because there are more teams based out of Ontario.
I know.
Sorry, allow me slide in
for logic. It was a rhetorical question.
I thought you were asking. I was like, oh, honey. I was like, we're gonna go back to high school math together.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so Vaughan FC, so the champions of League One Ontario, second time participating in the Canadian Championship for Vaughan FC. Which is pretty good. This is the draw and how it looks like. So CF Montreal will be playing Vaughan FC between the 18th and the 20th of April. If they do win, they will face Toronto FC. And if they do win, they will play against Forge FC, FC Laval, Halifax, or Ottawa to reach the final. Guys, what do you think about this draw? Let's start with you, Eve. Do you think we could have had a better draw? Is it to be expected because it's Quebec and Ontario? Tell me about it.
A better draw. Obviously, Vaughan is not a professional team, so there is undoubtedly going to be a heavy rotation for Montreal going into this. And it will be really interesting for sure to have them come to Stade Saputo. I think that will be a really interesting experience, and I do plan to attend that midweek. I assume it's going to be a midweek game. Obviously, though, for when it comes to quarterfinals, the two finalists from last year were placed in two of the quarterfinals brackets, as is quasi-tradition because Canada Soccer does like to change it up on us pretty frequently as to their decision-making skills. But I think that did remain consistent last year to this year. But that being said, obviously, if Montreal does make it past Vaughan, then they get to go to Toronto. And, last year Montreal did the same thing. That didn't go so well for them. Certainly there could have been easier draws as far as facing up against potentially a CPL opponent or from, League One Ontario, we never know. They certainly could have gotten a way better draw than they did.
Elias, do you agree with Chan? No luck. Probably will lose to TFC away from home.
Well, I mean,
I
first
know,
they have
Eve. That's
to.
why I didn't ask you the question.
And that's why I'm sitting here silently.
I mean, first they have to beat Vaughn, right? And sometimes it's easier said. Again, they are playing at home, which makes it that much more daunting. If they were going to Ontario to play this, maybe the home crowd, maybe you spark some kind of miracle. But again, if there is a heavy rotation of players and there's a lot of young players, then who knows, right? That being said, losing to Toronto on away last year, Montreal was the best. Aside from outside the shootout area, Montreal was the best away team in MLS history. And I think that at least that mentality and the fact that not too many players have left in terms of a core starting 11 or best 11, if you will, plus the massive chip on their shoulder with the way that they crashed out last time. I think that it's not that straightforward. Obviously, they're a little, they're a little bit of a disadvantage given that Toronto will have some more rest, given that they don't have to play the first round and they're at home. But it's the Canadian Classique, right? Anything can happen, and I think that we'll have to wait and see. First of all, what the form of both teams are. They'll have played about a month or the 2 months of season of MLS season by the time the first round rolls around, and even more by the time that if Montreal wins, they play Toronto. So for all we know, there could be a complete reversal in form, and one could be on a complete downslide, while another is got a couple wins in a row in the bag. So it's very tough to see. But yeah, I mean, Toronto away is never fun. BMO Field kind of sucks to play away at. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get one of those famous, shitty Toronto ambiances for one night. I doubt it, but it happens sometimes.
Midweek.
Yeah,
you never know.
Midweek, so you never know. You
Uh,
never know.
Derby
Exactly.
I assume I should say
think
midweek.
Yeah, I think take to ask us the question with the home radio option. We'll get to choose either TSN 690 or 91.9.
I don't know.
It's the same. It's the same. The contracts have been reconducted, but I'm not sure if it's for the friendlies if that's going to be available though. But for the season, yeah, you'll be able to see it to hear it on TSN 690 and 91.9. This stays the same. So moving on. So I can't wait for Voyageurs Cup. It's going to be fun. I think it's one of the best competitions that the club plays every year. Yes, we do have Leagues Cup this year, but we're Canadians, so Voyageurs Cup is what we aim for, right? So yeah. So now I think we can move on to international tournaments because we do have international tournaments coming up very, very soon. And of course, because I just want to bug Eve, so we'll play our segment. So Eve is about to kill me. So first of all, we have the under 17 CONCACAF Championship, U7 under 17 CONCACAF Championship coming from the 11th of February to the 16th of February. It's going to be in Guatemala. 4 players of Montreal have been called up. The son of Mauro Biello, so Alessandro Biello, Gaël de Montigny, Etienne Godin, and Antoine Cedar Ndiaye have been called up. 11th to the 16th of February, as I said, in Guatemala. Canada has been drawn into Group F alongside Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and the USA. The 3 games will take place, all of them in Antigua at Estadio Pensativo. The top 3 nations from the group advance to the round of 16. From the knockout phase, the top 4 nations will qualify for the 2023 FIFA U17 World Cup in Peru from November 10th to December 2nd. So for people that want to watch the games, I believe they're going to be on One Soccer. Usually they are. So the 11th of February at 5 p.m., Canada, Trinidad, and Tobago. On the 13th of February, Barbados, Canada. And on the 15th of February, USA, Canada. guys, is it a big objective for Canada to qualify for the World Cup, to be in that top four of CONCACAF? Because we should be in the top four every year. No,
Well, we've talked, I think, pretty extensively about how Canada handles their youth development, and especially coaching at youth tournaments, and it's very so yeah, no, we should realistically, like, on paper, one would think, but evidently it's very rarely shaken out that way. So I will certainly not put the cart before the horse here. I think they need to get off to a good showing. Hopefully they've gotten to spend some time together. I did see a tweet from Canada Soccer earlier that they played like a friendly scrimmage against Guatemala earlier today, actually, and it was a 0-0 draw, and like that's all the details that we got on that. I don't know. I feel like the youth level development is still really disorganized, so I don't want to count on anything.
wow. But do you think it's going to be an objective, Elias? Like we have to be able to get to the World Cup.
Well, I mean, I think if logically the next step, if you're trying to grow the federation, right, you have the success at the senior level, you want to have that pipeline that not only where you have success, but you also have this structure, right, where you feel like you're part of the national team at the lower levels as well, so you understand not just what is expected of you, but what it's like to play for Canada. Right. So if it's just like, a bunch of kids going to a sleepaway tournament and then, playing some soccer and whatever happens, then all of a sudden you're promoted to the under 20s. And then all of a sudden it gets a little bit more serious, but not too serious. And then all of a sudden you're on the senior team and you have no idea what's happening. Right. So I think instituting that kind of structure, and regardless of result, at least treating every single tournament as if, you're part of the senior team, where, you are expected to show up, represent Team Canada, and behave yourself in a certain way and act like professionals, then it's only going to improve the seriousness of the program, and it's only going to help improve the players and also just the overall structure of the federation. I think that aside from that, I don't know too much about the under 17s. I'm not too well versed in that. I think that you should at least aim to make it out of the group, and exactly. You should at least aim to make it out of the group, fight for some silverware. Obviously the World Cup would be an amazing experience for the kids, an amazing learning experience, but also just some great exposure, because again, anytime Canada's in a World Cup, any category is obviously noteworthy, so helps bring more attention to the game, and that never hurts. But the first thing is you have to take it seriously.
Yeah. I think Tate is trying to be more precise with this question. So for the MLS Pass, you get to listen to the home radio feed. The question is if both 690 and 91.9 will be options or only one of them. I'm not really sure.
Haven't seen an announcement either way. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. So sorry if I didn't understand your question at first, but yeah, we can't answer, unfortunately. So I agree with you, Elias. I think it's going to be very important, and I think it's going to be important for the growth of Canada, of soccer in Canada, of Canada soccer, and all of even the supporters, the fans, to get to know those players, at a young age. I think it's going to be very interesting. So that's it for the U17s. We have something else that just happened with Beth Priestman, that announced her squad for the pre-camp before the SheBelievesCup. So as we told you a few weeks ago, Canada has chosen to participate to the SheBelievesCup. So there's a squad that's been announced. So it's not the full squad yet. It's not the final squad yet, but just a squad for the pre-camp. So we have Amanda Allen, Simia Ujo, Janine Becky, Gabrielle Carl, Alicia Chapman, Vanessa Gilles, Jenna Hallstrom, Jordan Haidema, Clarissa Larisi, Victoria Pickett, Lisiane Prou, Quinn, Jade Rose, Sophie Schmidt, Kaylin Sheridan, Christine St. Clair, Bianca St. George, and Evelyn Vian. Yves, no surprises there, right?
No, of course. And, we do have to wait until the international window proper to get the final roster, which is going to include the players who people might be saying, well, where's Jesse Fleming? Where's Kadisha Buchanan? And so on and so forth. They should most certainly, barring a catastrophe, be on the final list. Yeah, no, I like the squad. I'm thrilled to see that Simia Wujo and Amanda Allen are both going to be back. I'm really excited. Obviously, it's a quick little 5-day camp for the players who are out of season. So that's mainly the NWSL players and the Sweden-based players as well. Vanessa Gilles, I kind of thought was a random inclusion, but I should maybe Lyon just doesn't have a game next weekend. I'm just wondering why it wasn't, because she is getting minutes now with Lyon. So I was a little curious about that. But otherwise, I think it's a good start. I'm glad that they're taking some extra time with those players because they haven't played in quite a while. So always good.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that expanded group going into international windows, just to give some sort of feel for the young players. This is what's waiting for you if one day you reach that level. Amanda Allen and of course Simia Wujo. Yes, they do have some call-ups, but not quite often as the other players that were called up.
Oh, they're so young,
right? Yeah, they are.
I was just gonna say they're so young. Yeah, so it's normal. I did just double check. Lyon doesn't play until February 26th.
Okay, so that's the reason why.
I'm not worried. Yeah, not worried anymore. Yeah, sorry. I should have checked that before we went live because the thought crossed my mind.
It's okay. Don't worry. So Elias, how important it is for those young players to be called up right now, even if they're not a part of the final squad. Do you think that's good for their experience, for the rest of their career, and for the rest of their international career, of course?
Yeah, I mean, exposure is always important, right? You get to train with the team. You get to train. You get to know the staff and the team you're trying to be a part of more intimately. It's always good to get more time under the spotlight as well. You get to kind of show your skill set in a more concentrated camp, right? Because there's not as many people where you get the chance to stand out more. So I think it's always important to have, just at least in pre-camps, just a certain amount of an injection of youth there, because you just need as wide a sample size, especially when you're growing as a soccer program. You always have to keep your eyes open for people that might surprise you. And I think whenever you have youth at a pre-camp, it's always a good sign. And it's not just, you're relying on only known factors, right? It's good because you get to experiment. You get to see a whole bunch of new and exciting talent.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Very exciting. So SheBelievesCup. So 3 games. So Canada, USA on the 16th of February. Canada, Brazil on the 19th of February, and then Canada, Japan on the 22nd of February. All teams, and we talked about it, that we played against already. What is the objective for you, Eve? Is there winning? Of course, we always want to win, but you're preparing the World Cup.
Exactly. So honestly, this is, I think, mainly if Bev Priestman has I'm hoping Bev Priestman has maybe some good ideas of players who she wants to bring with her for sure. And I think this is, I kind of consider this to be like a semi-competitive tournament. Like it's not really competitive, there's it's an invitational, right? It's not a confederated tournament. So with that being said, I think it would be advantageous, because the other participants are World Cup nations, to still field a really strong team. And especially, Canada versus US, that's always kind of a grudge match. I think you do want to make a statement, going to the, hand over fist favorites to win the World Cup, try to make a statement against them in their home. And, but still hopefully allowing some time to bring in some of those younger players, or some of those players who are just kind of starting to pierce into the greater consideration.
Anything to add, Elias?
Yeah, I mean, you've said it all, right? You always want to balance competitiveness with, rotation and experimentation in a friendly or in cups like this. But at the end of the day, these are very likely World Cup opponents. So you also want to take it as seriously as possible. You also want to, maybe send a message, maybe, establish some kind of dominance, maybe some mind games, but at the end of the day, it's about striking the right balance, between getting some new information and also just, seeing where you measure up against other contenders.
Yeah, I agree. We do have a question regarding the Canadian women's national team, Rhonda Brownlee. If Mark Skinner isn't going to play Adriana Leon with Manchester United, should he release her to join the Canadian women's national team pre-camp? Eve, what's up with that?
This is, oh my gosh, it's kind of mind-boggling, to be honest. I don't know what she has to do to get into this Man United squad, but she really hasn't had a lot of minutes. And I mean, we saw her versus Brazil. She was on fire, and then she made this move to Manchester United, and it's been really hard for her to get minutes. I mean, she is up against some really class competition. Sorry, but that being said, Manchester United, they are challenging for the title right now in the WSL. They're currently in second, and so it is going to be really important for them to maybe not experiment as much as they would have wanted to, because it's such a tight race right now for the league. But I mean, if she's not going to get a lot of time, then I would just as soon release her to.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna happen because I don't think it's gonna happen. You never know. An injury can happen. Anything can happen. You can need her pretty soon and pretty quickly. So, but I can see the logic behind it, but I don't think it will ever happen that a club releases their player ahead of time unless they're really in the second,
there's like an agreement.
Or in the second team or something like that. But I doubt that you would release a first team player, just ahead of time. It's very, very rare. But you know what? Hopefully, Adriana Leon will be able to get some minutes. But I also hope that one day, if she doesn't get the minutes she deserves, that she, even if playing in Manchester United is always a big thing. At the end of the day, you need to continue your career and you need to keep on improving and you need playing time in order to do so. So hopefully she'll go and find, playing time elsewhere if Manchester United is not the right fit for her, if she doesn't get minutes there, because we've seen Jane Becky, just leaving Manchester City just because she wasn't playing as much as she hoped for. So there's no shame in that, we all know that Jenny Becky is one of the best players that we have right now in the Canadian national team. So hopefully Adriana Leon will be able to take a decision that's good for her career in case she doesn't get playing time with Manchester United.
Yeah.
So that's it for the Canadian women national teams. I can't wait for the final squad. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about it next week. I should drop pretty soon if I'm not mistaken. So we'll talk about it a bit more next week. I never said thank you for all your questions, guys. We do have a lot of questions today, and it's really entertaining to answer you, and keep on sending us questions. It's really fun to interact with you guys. And I think we can close it out with social media. So Elias, you're the one that prepared social media, so I'll go right ahead and send the segment.
Yeah, so we've got some pretty spicy tweets. One that just was quite dumb, and some others that were
great lead-in.
Just interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's the first one that's gonna pop up, but it was.
Okay, we'll just go in the order.
A hot take to say the least. But this is from Arnaud Brossard, translated from French. You have to invest that money in return. Speaking with money that they get from the sales of people like
Mhm.
Georgi Mihailovic, Alistair Johnston, Ishmael Kone. You have to invest that money in return if you really want to become a resale club like Ajax, Dortmund, and Benfica. And I agree, it's clubs like Ajax and Barcelona have, these academies that they grow from, but Benfica and Dortmund are experts at buying young talent, growing, and then
Mhm.
reselling, right? So I think
Yep.
that's maybe at least until Canadian soccer catches up to other European countries, that
Mhm.
has to be the model that they follow, right? The academy obviously has had some good products, but the focus should be on, especially this year, if they get to sell more people and they get that recruitment clout, they can really buy some interesting young talent and resell it again. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Heidi, what do you think?
Uh, I can't put Ajax, Dortmund, and Benfica in the same sentence. That's for me, it's three different models altogether. Ajax, they never really reinvest in buying players. They usually just reinvest in their academy to get better products. And I think that's the route CF Montreal is going for. And it takes time in order to be that kind of club, to be at the Ajax level. Now Benfica is a bit of both. They do reinvest in some players, but also they reinvest in their academy. And Dortmund is completely different. They just reinvest their money within the German market in order to have the best players within Germany, that of course Bayern Munich doesn't choose, and develop them and just grow them to star players. So for me, it's three different models. I think CF Montreal is going to be, it wants to be, the Ajax of Canada, of the MLS, and in order to do so, they have to invest in their academy. Uh, is that money going towards the academy to develop, the women's side? And I hope that it is. Is it going to get better educators, better coaches? Is it going to get more partnerships with clubs from the region? We know that they just added to another club to the CIP, no, not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, and that's
Mhm.
awesome. So it all depends what's the model that you're looking at, and you know, I think that CF Montreal will reinvest that money, but not on players. I don't think so.
Mm.
I think it's like a gradual progression, right? Dortmund almost exclusively invests in players that they bring in that youth quality to resell.
Yeah,
Then Benfica has a mix of both, and Ajax is exclusive, almost exclusively the academy, right? So I think the
yeah,
end game is obviously Ajax, but especially if you look at the Canadian caliber players and the viability of them playing in Europe is growing, but it's not automatic. I think that they have to
Mhm.
work their way, and they could only work their way so much until eventually they may not have players that are wanted in Europe, right? So I think
yeah,
there
but
has to be a healthy mix of talent that you bring in, talent that you buy. For example, Alistair Johnson, who was Canadian but not from the academy. You have
yeah,
Georgia
yeah.
Mihailovic that
Mhm.
was brought in,
That
and
I agree.
people like that.
But
So
that you agree.
you need a
That I
healthy
agree. But
mix.
they invested everything that they can in the general education money, a money program. So
Yeah,
that's already done. So they can get MLS players, Canadian MLS players from wherever they want. That I agree. You can invest that way. But investing to go get players at 10, 15 millions, I don't think that's what CF Montreal wants to do, and I don't think that's the right route for them. What's interesting in Montreal and in Canada that it's an untapped market. It's a market that's not yet exploited by the European teams. So if you do have a talent, you just need to go and get it, right? And just grow it and make it. If you have a rough diamond somewhere, you go and you make it. You make it into the right cut diamond for whatever you want him to be. So, and that's what's really very, very interesting. Going the Ajax route is not going to be as difficult that in a European club that wants to be an Ajax club. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting subject, and
Mhm.
yeah, we could talk about it for hours. But I don't know if you have anything to add on this.
Not really. No. No. I pretty much agree with your take, Hattie. Um, we would be a small scale version of
Yeah,
that
of course,
reinvestment. Yeah.
of course,
All
of
right.
course. So moving on with the second tweet.
Okay.
Yes, this is from Giuseppe Campanelli, and this is something I'm very happy about. It's fairy tale start for Kyle Larin at his new club. Scores off the bench in each of his first 2 games to win it for Valladolid. That's 2 wins in a row for Valladolid, who were in 19th place in La Liga in a relegation battle. Now they're 4 points clear. That's 6 points in 2 games, 2 game-winning goals, 2 1-0 wins. The goals provided, of course, by Kyle Larin. Hady, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about him not getting time at Bruges, and does he go to MLS? Does he take this offer in Spain? We were talking about Cadiz at the point, not Valladolid at that moment, but still a struggling Spanish team where he may not get as many offensive looks, and at least for now, it looks like his gamble has paid off, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. Mea culpa. It does. It does. It looks like it, but let's wait and see until the end of the season, and hopefully, even if the lead gets relegated, hopefully it will be enough for him to go and grab a contract elsewhere in Europe, because I think that's the goal, and maybe in a team that's not struggling. So hopefully it will pan out.
We'll see.
There's potential here for him to turn into one of these cult heroes almost, where he comes in and he
saves the day.
He saves them from relegation, and even if they keep up with this form, because again, beating Sociedad, who's third in La Liga, is no small feat. If they end up making up further up the table, I mean, nowhere near the top 10, I think, but at least a decent mid-table finish where he sends to like this cult hero status. I mean, every club has one, right? Where I saw a video about Luke de Jong at Barcelona, right? And it's just kind of a reminder that these players that are kind of may appear underwhelming, they show up and they have this immediate impact, and the fans kind of latch on and love him. And you could tell that, like at Cadiz, at Valladolid, they're in love with him, right? The Twitter is just showering him with adoration. He was trending in Spain at one point, so it's really interesting to see that he's kind of managed to turn it around so quickly.
Cool.
It's a nice change of pace.
No kidding. All right.
So the next one, Lyon's record. This is from Liz. Lyon's record across all competitions. This is the 3 trophies available for the Women's League in France this season when Vanessa Gall starts. 12 games, 34 goals for, 11 clean sheets, 1 goal conceded, 1 goal scored. This is Gall's 1 goal, 2 assists, 9 wins, 2 ties, and a defeat. Absolutely phenomenal. Eve, is Vanessa Giles...
Yeah.
Sorry. Is Vanessa Giles one of not the best defender in Canada?
She is an excellent aerial presence. Like, Vanessa Gilles is one of my favorite players on the Canadian national team. And I think we've talked a lot about the back line because when we had Sam, who I did forget to say hello to, hi Sam, belatedly, Sam was always kind of a fan of Shalina Zadorsky, and I was always a really big proponent of the different profiles of Vanessa Gilles and Kadisha Buchanan together. And her aerial presence, like, she's not even a super tall and imposing person, but her aerial presence cannot be disregarded. I'm
She's one of the best in the world.
Yeah, I'm so happy that she's doing well, especially because when she arrived at Lyon, she was coming back from an injury. And that injury had actually kept her out of the national team for a while. So I'm really thrilled to see that she's finding her footing in one of the most elite women's clubs in the world. Love it. I'm so happy.
I love relatively undersized center backs that are just dominant in the air. There's something about, I mean, I'm a Barcelona fan. Carlos Puyol is my favorite player ever. So, I mean, there's a special place in my heart for center backs that are just phenomenal in the air.
That's
like
awesome.
So it's awesome to see that, Canada has one of their own. So it's awesome.
Yeah. No, she's great. Love her. Anything else you wanted to add on, Hady?
No, I said what I wanted to say. One of the best in the world aerially, and she's
absolutely.
Honestly, I never thought I would see a player challenge the duo Buchanan Zadorsky. And she not only challenged them, but she took the place of Zadorsky. So
and
deservedly. It all, right? Deservedly.
And it's not a knock against Shalina Zadorsky either. Just to be clear, like it's nothing against what she did. It's just or did not do. It's just what Vanessa Gilles brought to the role.
I agree.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. 4th tweet.
All right, this is from Vincent again. This is Translated from French, watching the iconic players' videos on Apple TV, it pains me to see how the club's marketing hasn't capitalized enough on Piatti and Drogba's moments. An Argentinian magician with the ball at his feet and a living legend of football, it was more than memorable.
Yeah.
Just how much more do you think the club should have done with two players of this stature?
I don't know. It's not a very nice answer that I have.
Go ahead.
I mean,
Speak your mind.
Thinking and Nacho Piatti wasn't necessarily a household name when he came to MLS, but certainly Didier Drogba absolutely was. And people showed up whether the team did any effort or not. People showed up because they wanted to see Didier Drogba. Unfortunately, I think Nacho Piatti was even more of a gift to the Montreal soccer community than Drogba was. And sadly, it was really, I think, him, because Drogba could just market himself just by being. But Nacho Piatti is a really understated presence. He's not really out there necessarily with a lot of publicity. Like, he wasn't even on social media at all until very recently. So yeah, I do think the club definitely let themselves down with generally speaking, one of the most underrated players in all of MLS. And he probably stayed so underrated because he was talked about so little.
Yeah,
That's
nothing
a
to
really
add
good
from
point.
my
Yeah.
part. Nothing to add.
Yeah. Kind of hit. That wasn't too mean. That was pretty much the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I agree.
There we go. Awesome.
Yep.
Then will we move on to our final tweet?
Yeah.
We have the last one. Yes. This is from Will Forbes, and this is I couldn't ignore this. It genuinely almost ruined my day. These are Will Forbes.
Elias,
is an MLS who is a prominent MLS reporter who these are his predictions for the Eastern Conference. It's in order: Toronto, Philly, Columbus, Inter Miami, Orlando City, Red Bulls, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Charlotte, New England, Nashville, NYCFC, DC United, Chicago Fire, and dead last is CF Montreal. Hady, I know that there's been a lot of departures and not too many new arrivals. Do you think 15th is harsh? Do you think it's just pessimistic? Do you think it's maybe due to a lack of awareness of, the workings of the club? What's going on with that prediction?
First of all, Will Forbes placed CF Montreal in last position for the last 3 years.
Yep.
So for me, his opinion is not an opinion that I respect, because it doesn't look like he knows what he's talking about. He can be the best MLS insider that he wants because he has contacts, here and there. But when you don't know soccer, you can't really predict anything you want. So I can't for me, it's impossible that you put a team last and they finish second in the East.
One of us here did something similar.
You didn't put them last.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Okay, so that's what I was saying. It's okay if you say, what, they're going to be 8th, 9th, 10th, and then they finish second, because it's very close. The gap is very close between the second team and the 10th team. There's always 10 points, and things can change, and surprises can happen. But between the second place team and the last team in the East, there's a huge gap, 25, 30 points. And when you do it 3 times in a row, you lose the credibility that you had, So, I tried to see at the answers that he gave and the discussions that he had with some people under that tweet. And he was like, yeah, they lost so many players and stuff like that. I'm like, but they replaced all the players that they lost.
It's like, I completely, I understand that it's definitely far from a sure thing for Montreal this year. Completely agree.
Of course,
there's so many. We do have a lot of question marks.
Of course.
But yeah, to give, is it? I'd be curious to see. I think the previous years, like plural years, because there's multiples. lists just to see if other teams were like consistently similarly ranked. You know what I mean? Just makes I'm not sure how much thought went into it. I don't know.
I mean, I still remember before 2021 when MLS.com had Montreal last place in the MLS Power Rankings at the beginning of the season, right? So it could also just be like a lack of paying attention to what's going on in Montreal, because I mean, very clearly Montreal missed out on the playoff spot on decision day, so they obviously weren't last place in the league this year. Obviously, I mean, I think I mostly agree with you, Eve. I think that, you know, a playoff team, well, he brought a lot of people to Montreal, you know, so
yeah,
I mean,
maybe,
yes,
by extension basically brought me.
But yeah, I mean, I think playoffs is a very attainable goal this year. I think maybe, you know, second and hosting a playoff game is aiming a little bit high. I'd love to be wrong, but I think that playoffs are very, very, very in the conversation for this team's realistic objectives.
Yeah, I don't think like they're gonna
Hattie's
lay
not
down
as convinced.
I need to see some friendlies. I need to see the first 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Usually I don't judge before at least 10 games within the season to have a definite answer. But yeah, of course we're gonna have to give our predictions like we usually do before the beginning of the season. But we need to see some friendlies. But looking at the squad, I think we're very light in order to get a playoff spot. But we'll be fighting for a playoff spot, but I don't think we'll get it as of right now. From what I have as information, I want to see how the team evolves. I want to see how the team, if the team agrees with Lozada's vision. I think we're gonna be able to get some answers at the end of the preseason. I think I cut you off, Eve. I'm sorry.
I don't think he did.
Okay. Sorry, I was like thinking about this the whole time I was talking.
No. Okay. Sorry.
Good. But Chad has a good take, saying that Nashville is back to East, another tough opponent. Yeah, places are going to be very, 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 very tough. Playoff places in the East. It's going to be.
I think it's going to be like a bloodbath this year.
Yeah. It is.
And Nashville's always made it their brand, you know, to not be easy to play against.
Oh, very.
That's been their brand for a while now, right? So you go in there, you're expecting a bloodbath. So
yeah,
I think if they line up correctly, they might be able to get a result. But if you have everybody buying into a system and you feels like you're going to play Atletico Madrid at the and you know that every single game you're going to come out bruised and tired and beaten, and you know you come up with a 1-1 draw and you're just like, I hate playing these guys. It's obviously it's never going to be easy playing Nashville.
Yeah. No, I think like just for the conference overall this year, just seeing like you know, the teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, you know, we've seen, for example, Charlotte, who was kind of close last year. They made a lot of reinvestment. Obviously, Columbus, they made some moves of their own, for example. Yeah. Well, Cincinnati did make the playoffs, but, you know, they didn't go far, but they've also definitely done some investment. DC, I'm not high on. I'm sorry, Wayne. But anyway, like I feel like a lot of the teams that didn't make the playoffs here, and I feel like the teams that did make the playoffs, I feel like Montreal realistically, yes, did quote unquote lose the most. Completely agree player wise. Especially if we factor in losing the coach as well. But that being said, like I think it is going to be really competitive because so many teams did invest, and then even teams who had outgoing departures reinvested or, you know, found appropriate replacements maybe already within their own system. So I think it's gonna be hardcore this year, the East.
It is, and I thought that MLS was gonna change their playoff format to 8 teams like they do in the NBA and the NHL, to 8 teams qualifying from each conference, but they didn't. It's 7 teams still, and I think that's a bit harsh because right now you have per conference you have 15 and 14 teams, and I think 7 is a bit too little for the
It's
playoffs.
half.
But no, it's less than half for one conference, right?
Okay, well, we can't have half a team
I know
qualify.
you're right. It's half. You're right. But usually NBA, I think it's 30 teams and it's 8-8, and I think NHL is what 31 now, 30.
32
same.
now
So it's
because of the
32.
Kraken.
32, and it's 8-8. So I
Yeah.
want to see an 8-8. And for me, getting first in the Eastern Conference, giving you a bye in the first round, for me, this shouldn't happen anymore. You play playoffs like anybody else, but hopefully we'll see a change in format in one day.
Honestly, I was gonna say, MLS, they are open to changing things real quick.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Oh, yep.
Yeah. Was that the last tweet for our social media?
That is the last one. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Elias, for that great segment. I hope you guys like that too. And I think that's about it for today's episode of The Ball is Round. I thank you guys for being with me, Eve, Elias. And thanks for everyone for listening, for staying with us during those couple of hours. We had a packed episode today, so a show that's a bit longer than usual. Please, just wanted to let you know that we do have a Patreon page. So if you are interested in supporting us, if you want to help us with our content, feel free to go and participate in the Patreon page. Of course, our content will always be free, 100%. But if you want to participate, it will mean a lot to us. So thanks a lot, everyone, and thank you for your time. And see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round.